Hi, I'm Mark, and I love Star Wars a whole bunch. And I have put together this rewatch plan for what I'm calling the Cosmic Force Vlog, as of right now, anyway. So I'm going to be rewatching one movie a week in anticipation of The Rise of Skywalker in December. And I want to record and document not only my responses, but my wife, Stephanie's, and our friend and roommate, Matt, who will all be watching these movies together leading up to the big event in December. And so, yeah, so we're going to get their reactions. But first, before we start episode 1, we wanted to, or I wanted to anyway, they agreed, to whet our appetites for the prequels with this little guy right here, the Prequels Strike Back, A Fan's Journey, a documentary, a crowdsourced documentary that I've actually seen already before, and I think it's a pretty great documentary. I think that it has a lot of interesting insights that might be lost on people who've, only seen the prequels when they first came out and thought they were okay to pretty terrible. Yeah, rather than being a persuasive essay trying to convince you oh, the prequels are actually really good and you just don't understand them. It's more of a retrospective looking back on the cultural impact and perceptions of the prequels and just the lasting legacy that those films have left behind. Maybe it'll give us some food for thought going into the prequels. Maybe it'll change our attitudes, or who knows? Who knows what it'll be? It's an experiment. We'll see what happens. Yeah, so I'm gonna turn it over to these guys now with some questions to kind of get our footing, and then we're gonna dive into the movie, and then we'll catch up after to see our responses. All right. So yeah, let's pass it over to them with the questions.
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm here today to watch the Prequels Strike Back and talk about Star Wars. Well, the prequels they're obviously very different from the original trilogy that was released in the 70s and 80s. My opinion of them, it revolves more about decisions made by George Lucas with regards to casting and script dialogue. I felt that Hayden Christensen's performance was underwhelming, and I felt that the dialogue throughout the films was lacking substance. There's a few ones as we get into the Revenge of the Sith, where Emperor Palpatine has got these cliche villain lines, and for such a great story that led a generation for decades, I felt that almost betrayed the fan base. And that's my opinion of the prequels. That and a little too much use of computer generated effects, especially when we have the technology for practical effects.
What are your thoughts going into this new rewatch of all of the movies and leading up into The Rise of Skywalker?
I don't know if I have any thoughts going into it. I've seen all these movies enough times to know that I'm not going to pick up on anything I've missed before. All I'm hoping for is that the storyline is fresh on my mind from start to finish, so that when we go into the final film here that is about to come out in a couple months, it accumulates seamlessly. Do I have to answer that?
I guess you don't have
I mean, my favorite of the prequels will probably be Revenge of the Sith. It wasn't without its ridiculous moments, but it had fewer of them than episodes 1 and 2. My least favorite was episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and I think we all know why. Jar Jar Binks was not... he distracted from so much of what was going on anytime he was on screen.
Thoughts on episode 2?
Clone Wars, it had an important storyline that really needed to take place to push the whole arc forward. The romance between Padme and Anakin was a little too puppy love-ish, and it almost two-dimensional. When we see on screen and even real life relationships develop, we see a lot more layers going on in there, and we didn't get that out of this. It was just, we come into it with a teenage boy who's looks almost like he's like young adult, and he's still obsessing over this woman who seems to have never aged, and we don't really know more beyond that. It feels like a childish sort of like lust or infatuation, and nothing more than that, but we're expected to accept that it's something very deep.
Can I just say ditto to what he said? Hello. I'm Stephanie Wilder. I'm Mark's wife. The highest highs? Damn. Probably Revenge of the Sith was the highest, coolest moment. Just because it had the better drama, and story.
Okay. The lowest lows?
Phantom Menace.
Yeah?
Yeah, that was like hot garbage. Well, I hate for saying it because it's not Jake Lloyd's fault. Just so annoyed at it, and it's not his fault. The dialogue's horrible, so he couldn't help himself. He's very cute though, I'm sure he's a great in person. Not your fault, Jake. Not your fault. And Jar Jar Binks too is really annoying. I just feel bad like talking so much crap because I hate being a hater. Obi-Wan is my favorite. And Palpatine is cool too, but yeah, his dialogue. All the dialogue. And all of them. But yeah, Palpatine's legit. Like, Ewan McGregor's good in everything. Even in horrible things.
So, you said your favorite of the prequels is Revenge of the Sith. Your least favorite is Phantom Menace. What are your thoughts on Attack of the Clones?
Oh, yeah. That one's also bad. Gosh, is Phantom Menace better than Attack of the Clones? Is that true? Maybe. I know I said Phantom Menace, but I think Attack of the Clones is pretty horrible.
Yeah?
God, I can't pick. Okay, no. Okay, well, good thing we're doing this rewatch, because then I can know for sure which one's the worst. Between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, those are the worst ones. Yeah, and I agree with Matt about the practical effects. Like, I fucking love puppets, and just anything that feels like tactile and real, like I love the Labyrinth, Dark Crystal, all that stuff. So they could have gone that route. They didn't. I feel bad about my Revenge of the Sith answer because it wasn't very lush. There's other cool things about it, right? Better dialogue, even though it's So.
Alright, cool. Are you ready to do this?
Yes, I'm ready to give it another chance. Because I think I'll be surprised. Because I like the show Rebels. I like the Attack of the Clones show. Not everything, but like a chunk of it.
Clone Wars?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Clone Wars. And I like Ahsoka. Which she should have been in the prequels, would help a little bit. Yeah.
I didn't realize that there was so much involved with the construct of these movies. I'm not even sure if George Lucas really even had a lot of these thought processes about constructing this story that takes on the structure of what I think they referred to it as the ring. I'm not sure how much of that is actually there. There's a lot of hypotheses in it that I guess can only be formed after the fact too, once you've seen the creation in its entirety. But there were a few things I didn't consider either, particularly pertaining to the prequels. is these camera angles that are meant to make us feel like an 8 or 9-year-old child looking up at our characters. And we see some similar shots like that through the original trilogy. But definitely, I believe that the prequel trilogy was geared more towards children. And I think that's a novel approach, because I think that's kind of an underlying theme that follows us through the Star Wars thing, is that it's the next generation carries on the traditions. We're seeing that now in this trilogy that's finishing up, where rebellion lives on, the Force lives on, everything lives on through the next generation. And so I think capturing the story through the eyes of children, or as a perspective of children, it's almost a romantic approach to it. And I do like that. I do think, yes, I mean, fans have been very cruel to George Lucas over the years. And I do know that's why he sold the Star Wars franchise and his companies. But I do also feel that he had to expect a little bit of backlash from that, knowing that there was such a, I'm going to just say, epic difference from styles that he used, decades apart. So he couldn't have been surprised by that. But he also doesn't need to justify it. It as they say, it is art. And it's interpretation. We interpret art by looking at the art, not the artist. He's just merely creating something in a medium for us to be able to view.
Any final comments or thoughts going into the prequel rewatch now that you've seen this documentary?
Not yet. Not yet. I mean, I'll watch for a few things, because mainly relying on camera angles. I'll look into that and see what, like how that, because that's something I never considered, was the perspective of a child viewing this story. So I will try to look at it through that lens and see how that shapes the way I'm viewing this, especially since we are talking about a story that starts off about a boy who grows up to become a father, and then we're following his son, who we meet as a boy, bit of an older boy, but still a boy nonetheless. And they even refer to them as boys or young boys in Phantom Menace and A New Hope. So I think that's a perspective to view through. So yeah, so we'll see how that goes.
Now that you've seen the movie, what are your initial thoughts?
Well, it made me feel guilty for being a hater, but I don't feel too guilty because I'm not a troll. I don't go online harassing people about liking the prequels. If people, I think maybe in back in the day I used to give people more crap, but never online, just in person. But nowadays in person, I will, if someone tells me they like the prequels, I'll say oh, okay, cool. I don't, I'm grown up now. But a lot of people haven't grown up. I don't really engage on the online Star Wars community in general for that reason. Just everyone's just so negative, kind of grosses me out. It's just get a life,
Did you have any favorite parts of the movie?
Well, earlier when you first asked me about the prequels, I was saying how there was no practical effects, and then they mentioned using 2,000 miniatures. I was like, holy crap, that's a lot of, I mean, it'd be cool if they would have used puppets, because look at Yoda now and you look at old school Yoda, obviously one's better, the old one. But I'm okay, so there was some practicalness to it, so I guess they were saying that it was very groundbreaking and it's responsible for a lot of new technology digitally, and I work with video. I don't know, it's for all good cause, and I'm sure
with have a golem.
Yeah, I feel with the rewatch and looking at it with fresher eyes, maybe I'll have more an appreciation for it. I just don't know if the things that I found grating before will still be there. I think that's one big difference between the prequels and the old movies. It's just there's I could watch the old movies and very little things I find grating. The maybe one thing is Luke being like a whiny teenager. That kind of goes away fast. So.
Was there anything that this movie brought to your attention that you had never considered before?
Well, I knew about the whole hero's journey thing, but I guess the old ones mirroring the new ones. It seemed more, I guess, deliberate than I thought. I mean, I guess, like, it's kind of like, duh, of course it's going to be deliberate because they're putting so much freaking money at it, right? And it's like, how many years has he had to, like, think about it? So, of course, it's going to be a lot of deliberate decisions. So, just learning that it was more deliberate than I once perceived. Then I'm like, oh, they're just throwing effects money at it, you know? Just, like, they don't care how it comes out. I mean, obviously, it's a passion project. I just wish, like, the grading thing. Like, I know that, okay, they were saying how 3CPO and Jar Jar Binks are the same thing.
C-3PO, yeah.
Sorry, C-3PO.
Uh-huh.
I'm dyslexic. And they're not the same. Jar Jar is like 100 times more annoying. Like 1,000 times. Like a lot more. And then C-3PO, right? Okay. Don't give me crap. Okay, he's like mildly annoying. Like just tiny bit, but he's more like cute. And that's one thing too, is that if you look at Jar Jar versus C-3PO, Jar Jar is like not very cute, like at all. Like zero amount of cute. And that's how you can get away with being annoying sometimes, is if you're cute. A little bit. No, wait, Jake Lloyd was cute. Kind of.
You painted yourself into a
I
corner.
know, I'm wrong. Hold on.
I think there's no denying that this guy is cute.
This guy's cute. But Jake Lloyd was cute too.
Yeah.
I guess it's just the way you portray people.
Mm-hmm.
Make them mildly annoying, not like overtly in your face annoying.
Maybe you just cracked Jar Jar. Like you figured out how to solve.
Yeah, just like if he just like tone it down.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit. Well, I've given Anakin a lot of crap for his like decisions, like him killing all the Jedi kids, like knowing his character, and also with the Clone Wars show, like just knowing who he is. I'm like, there's no way in hell he'd kill like a bunch of kids because like the old dude said so, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no way. Like that's you can't sell me that.
But what about the Sand People? He killed not just the men, but the women and children too.
That's true. Well, the Sand People, he's a prejudice. Don't kill the kid. You already like up already. Okay, like Padme, she knew about the kid killing, right? With the Sand People.
Yeah.
That's a red flag right there. You're gonna be like, oh, his mom died. Anyways, like an abuser, like you make excuses for them. It's like, better run, girl.
So what were you gonna be looking for going back?
Just to make sense of Anakin.
Oh, okay.
To see if he makes more sense. I don't think he will, but we'll see. And then to give Padme more of a chance, because I kind of was a hater too with her. But I like her outfits. I like the headgear. But hopefully after all this, I'll just learn to not be a hater as much in general. Learn something from this.
Any final comments?
Are we watching the Phantom Menace next? Yeah, no more comments. I guess we'll just see what happens. What is your take on the documentary?
Well, as I've said before, I've already seen this documentary, but I quite enjoy it. It's funny because I saw this documentary for the first time after I already quite enjoyed the prequels, which I would say has only really been for about the last year and a half, and before that time, I would say, I'm not exactly proud to say that I used to be like I was a prequel hater, you know, up until about a year and a half ago. Yeah, I just thought that they were worthless movies made by an incompetent rube. I just feel like a kind of a shame, not like, oh, like how stupid I was to not see how great these films were, but just like I couldn't let myself enjoy them because I had some obligation. Like I was beholden to some higher standard of filmmaking, where I love Speed Racer, and that's a pretty silly, cheesy movie too. I guess I've become less uptight with what kinds of movies I can like. But that being said, this film still brought new things to my attention to appreciate about the prequels, like the whole thing about in episode 2, like the courtly love, not to be confused with Courtney love, but the idea that it's like Guinevere and Lancelot, or like Tristan and Isolde, the relationship between Anakin and Padme. Because, when you watch episode 2, so many of those scenes, so many of those lines are just like, they're hard to stomach. But yeah, kind of watching it with an eye for like a Jane Austen romance or something, it softens that cringe factor, I think. And also things like toward the end of the documentary, there's a wonderful point to be made about how Qui-Gon was supposed to be Anakin's master, and he got killed off, and Obi-Wan was kind of obligated to step in and train Anakin, even though he might not have been ready necessarily. And in episode 2, Anakin says, when there's that nod and a wink joke of, "Why do I get the feeling you're going to be the death of me?" And he's like, "Don't say that, Master. I think of you as a father." And so he looks up to Obi-Wan as a father figure, but Obi-Wan at the end says, "You were like a brother to me, Anakin." And so it shows kind of an inconsistency in their relationship. Like they don't quite meet eye to eye, and that it sets up in a way like the room for Palpatine to be Anakin's father figure. So just some of those kinds of details just add to the value, the takeaway value of the prequels, and just kind of that literary, multi-layered aspect of things to appreciate. But honestly, there ain't a Star Wars movie I don't love. I think of Star Wars Episode 2 and Rogue One as my 10th and 11th, or 9th and 10th, wherever we are in the saga, least favorite, but I still love them. And while I know most people say Episode 3 is their favorite prequel, I would say I think The Phantom Menace is my favorite prequel, by a small margin. Phantom Menace, Revenge of the Sith, Attack of the Clones. Well, it was a lot of things, really. A lot of things kind of over the years, just gradually shaping and refining my perception of the prequels, because I really used to hate them. For the longest time, I just thought they were garbage movies with zero cinematic value. And I think maybe just in recent years, I've undergone a softening of the heart, and have come to think, it's important to me to value my sense of appreciation for things, whether it's films or just art in general. I think it's a better perspective to be able to appreciate art however you see it. So I tried to look at the prequels with an eye for, is there anything to appreciate here? And if there is, how much can I allow myself to appreciate what has been put there for my enjoyment? So, looking at it with those eyes, I feel like there is a wealth of stuff. There's just so much stuff in every corner, that's just like, do you like this? Do you like this? It's just being thrown at you every few seconds, that it's just like, even some of them are just kind of like, well, that's not great. There's so many, some of them are bound to stick, and that's kind of how the prequels are for me. Even though Anakin leaping off the counter going, "Yippee!" or Hayden Christensen going "You underestimate my power," just or "You're in my very soul," or whatever he says to Padme. Some of these things that are cringeworthy are just surrounded by great thing after great thing after great thing. Great is subjective, but I just find a ton of stuff to enjoy and appreciate in these movies. As I've said a few times now, I think the prequels are thoroughly imperfect films, but they're also kind of perfect. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now I like them. That's That's about it. Sweet. Well, thanks, Matt. I know you're headed off for work, so
Yes.
thanks for recording this and answering these questions.
Welcome. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one.
All right. Cool.